Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. It's me again, Jen. Hello! And it is the 21st of January, and it is a Thursday. So we will be rolling into the weekend as we get the card for today from the DaVinci Tarot deck. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the box has like two different images on it. We've got one on one side and one on the other. And I have not yet come across those cards. Maybe one of those lovely ladies will show her face as we pull from the deck today. I feel like I've looked at a lot of the cards in this deck at this point, and yet still there's always something really new and exciting. So, plus it does come with this cool little book that has like exploration questions in it and different things. So it's a little more unique than a standard tarot deck. So, let's see, without further ado, let's see what card we have for this Thursday. Oh, that one's back again. All right. So, we did see the machine that's in the background in another of the cards. I think it was the Death card. I'm not positive, though. This is the Seven of Swords, and I kind of like how the swords are latticed together up there. That's kind of interesting. I'm not sure if there's a hardcore meaning to that, but I do feel like it's a unique way of positioning the swords. I have seen that in a couple of the others, so it's not just the swords that are latticing together the symbols. I think the wands or the rods are doing the same thing. But this one does have also the repetition, as mentioned, of the kind of death machines that Da Vinci invented. I don't know that either of these machines were actively created and used, but I know that he had drawings of them. And they are brutal. They kind of show the darker side of his genius in that he did create war machines. He did also have the idea of this is how we could kind of reap the fields of our enemies. And the war chariot, which has the scythes along the side, as well as I think it was just called the death machine. I'm not sure. But it basically is a lawnmower for human bodies. And it would cut the legs and limbs off of enemy soldiers. This is way more violent than any Seven of Swords I've ever seen. And it really puts more of the emphasis on the destruction that we cause to others rather than just the theft aspect. Usually, the Seven of Swords has an individual, a thief, it's depicted as a thief pretty much. This individual has swords on their shoulders and they're escaping into the night from a household that we assume is not their own. And it's like they're gathering up anything and everything that they possibly can without any concern for the individual who owns the house or really their own safety because they're carrying a bunch of swords. But either way, it is always a card of what kind of damage do we do to others and the thought process of what can we do to better ourselves without demeaning or damaging those around us. Whereas this is very much the how can we not kill people around us? So it's a much darker, much more violent version of the story that is told typically. There is still death and kind of that destruction aspect to the theft of somebody else's weaponry. So I kind of can feel how they got there with this, but at the same time, I I don't really know what to say about how violent this is because typically I look at the Seven of Swords as almost like a prank level of villainy because it's petty theft. It's stealing things and they look kind of awkward. The person who is stealing usually looks like they're not really good at being thieves because they're just kind of throwing everything into their arms and hoping they don't drop anything on the way out. And there's not a whole lot of sense or planning to it. And yet this feels very planned. This is, I am going to do bad things to other people and I mean it. not, oh, well, bad things might happen to other people because of my poor choices. So I don't know how I feel about how aggressive the message in this card is, as opposed to a more typical Seven of Swords. As I've mentioned before, the story of the swords is not a positive one. Right up to the end, bad things happen, and it really, there's not a whole lot of positivity in any of the cards, and including the court cards have kind of more of a darker, more aggressive, um, they learned their lesson sort of approach to who they are as characters in the story. So it fits to have these, death machines on here, but it is more aggressive than I feel like a typical Seven of Swords is. The other thing I kind of like about this one is that it doesn't show, at least in the aspect of the kind of human lawnmower machine, it's sitting there inert. It's like it has already done its job, but there's no one sitting on top of it. No one is running it. It is it is there to be used, but there aren't enough people alive in this scene to use it. So a lot of times you want to think about that too when the Seven of Swords comes up. Is a lot of your aggressive behavior or the things that you are doing, maybe you just don't have to use a psychological sort of term, you don't have the spoons to do it. So even if you want to be aggressive, even if you want to cause harm to others, maybe you just don't have the knowledge or the power to do that. And you do feel like it's not worth it to be more aggressive. It's sort of letting the vengeance slide feeling. And I like that because the flip side is with the Seven of Swords, that kind of bumbling nature of the thief that's usually there of like, yeah, you're taking all these swords, but what the heck are you going to do with them? You can hardly carry them all. So why? Why are you taking them all? How many swords do you really need in life? So I kind of feel like that's a message that is still conveyed in this card when you look at the machinery that's in the background. The only thing that it looks like is happening with the one human on here is that they are fleeing, that they are riding this chariot of death. There's no one that they are going to trample. They're just running away. They're just trying to salvage what they do have, which is their own life. And they are doing so in a weapon, but that weapon isn't actively causing harm to anyone. So a lot of times we can say that like our bitterness, our want for vengeance and all that stuff, it does harm us as well. But at the same time, it may give us the ability to get away and not put ourselves in a position of being the victim anymore. So a lot of things to unpack on this card. It's super interesting. There's a lot of heavy imagery on this. I feel like I could talk about this one all day, but at the same time, I like to leave a little to you guys to see what other things you might notice. That like they seem to have their arms but not their feet, and the guy in the forefront is very much smaller than the background machinery. I don't know, a lot of different things. So I think it's an interesting card for a Thursday as we start leaning into the weekend and we're hoping to have kind of a lighter spirit of things. That's still a pretty heavy card. I feel like all the swords are kind of heavy cards. Either way, I hope that you got something out of that little message with this particular card and maybe learn a little bit about DaVinci as well. And until next time, please stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!